Good afternoon and welcome to the afternoon session at Law and Crime Network. I'm your host, Dan Lieberman. Thanks so much for joining us. Joining me now, David Ring, civil trial attorney, and Darren Gelber, also a trial attorney. Welcome to you both.
Thank you, Dan.
And I want to talk more about that. I mean, this idea of a non-prosecution agreement. Darren Gelber, also a trial attorney. Darren, what are your thoughts on this idea, this notion of a non-prosecution agreement? Is this, how typical is this?
Well, it's not very typical, and most states require that type of agreement to be in writing. But that's not really what the court said went on here. The court said that the district attorney at the time made a calculated public decision that Cosby would never be prosecuted for this offense, and that the reason he made that determination and he made that statement was with a purpose to induce Cosby to speak publicly and to give testimony at the then upcoming civil trial. And the court found that that was amounted to a due process violation, that, in fact, the district attorney had promised that Cosby would never be prosecuted, and Cosby reasonably relied upon that public statement and gave testimony that was then used against him at his criminal trial. So it's a very, very strange, very unique decision, unlike one that I think anybody expected, unlike one that I've ever seen before. And the concurrence agreed with the conclusion that there was a due process violation, but said that Cosby should be forced to be tried again, this time without being allowed to use those statements that Cosby gave at his civil deposition. But in the end, the majority said Cosby cannot be prosecuted. This case is going to be dismissed, and he will be set free.
Right, and just to, on that point though, his testimony makes it seem as if Mark wanted to have a relationship with his son, with Dylan. How can a father go from craving this relationship to killing him? Darren?
Well, there's no real good answer to that question. The testimony does go to show that Dylan had some reluctance in visiting his father, that from his end, he didn't seem to want to maintain or work on maintaining a relationship. It helps paint a picture for the jury that Dylan's mom was trying to encourage, communication there, despite the divorce, despite the acrimony, despite the fighting over custody. She was encouraging Dylan to return his father's calls. But it helps set a backdrop for the jury that leads up to Dylan taking his last trip to see his father, the trip that he never returned from. But the question that you asked me, Dan, how could a father do this to a son? I mean, that's the question in the back of everybody's head. That's the question that looms over this trial, that the jury struggles with every day, that everyone is thinking about. How could a father do this to his son?
And just so tragic looking at those photos of Dylan all those years ago, and lost his life so young. I'll leave you with those images we just saw of Mr. Redwine. We'll be right back.